You know that sinking feeling when you scroll through social media and see someone living what looks like your dream life, that vacation you couldn't afford, the promotion you didn't get, the relationship that seems perfect while yours feels messy. Jealousy creeps in uninvited, and suddenly you're stuck comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. It's exhausting, right? But what if I told you there's an ancient philosophy that can turn that toxic jealousy into something far more powerful presence? Stoicism, practiced by emperors and philosophers for centuries, offers a surprising antidote to the modern plague of envy. It's not about suppressing emotions or pretending you don't care. It's about redirecting that energy into something transformative, a deeper connection to yourself and the moment you're in. Imagine waking up tomorrow and feeling genuinely happy for that coworker who got the raise you wanted. Picture yourself scrolling past those picture-perfect posts and feeling curiosity instead of resentment. That's not just wishful thinking, it's what happens when you apply Stoic habits to your daily life. This video isn't about quick fixes or surface-level positivity. We're diving into 25 Stoic practices that rewire how you experience jealousy, turning it from a draining emotion into fuel for growth. These are the same tools Marcus Aurelius used to lead an empire without losing his humanity, the same principles that helped Seneca face betrayal with grace. And the best part, they work just as powerfully today. By the end of this journey, you won't just understand jealousy differently. You'll catch yourself in those moments of envy and pause, not to judge yourself, but to ask, what is this emotion trying to teach me? You'll learn how to channel that restless energy into gratitude, how to see other people's success as inspiration instead of a threat, and most importantly, how to reclaim the one thing jealousy steals from you, your ability to be fully present in your own life. This isn't about becoming indifferent, it's about becoming alive. So let's dive in. Your quieter, sharper, more joyful mind is waiting. Here's a radical way to start your day, not with caffeine, not with a rushed scroll through your phone, but with a mental exercise designed to disarm jealousy before it even takes hold. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. Picture Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in Rome, sitting quietly in his chamber each morning. Instead of dwelling on his empire's grandeur, he'd mentally rehearse the irritations ahead. The colleague who'd take credit for his ideas, the friend whose success might prick his envy, even the petty insults he'd endure. Why? Because by envisioning these triggers beforehand, he stripped them of their power. This practice isn't about pessimism, it's about inoculation. Think of jealousy like a virus. When you expose yourself to small, controlled doses, imagining your friend flaunting their promotion, or your sibling boasting about their perfect relationship, you build emotional antibodies. By the time you encounter these moments in real life, they don't shock your system. You've already rehearsed your response, not with resentment, but with detached curiosity. Ah, there it is, the sting I expected. Now, how will I choose to see this? Try it tomorrow. Before you check your phone or rush into the day, sit for 5 minutes and ask, what could trigger my jealousy today? Maybe it's seeing your gym buddy post a progress pic while you've skipped workouts. Perhaps it's overhearing a coworker praised for the project you wanted. Play the scenario in your mind, not to dwell on it, but to defang it. Notice how, when you confront these emotions in advance, they lose their grip. You're no longer reacting blindly, you're responding with the calm clarity of someone who's already walked this path in their mind. The brilliance of this habit lies in its simplicity. You're not fighting jealousy, you're outsmarting it. By the time you step into your day, you've already won the first battle. And that changes everything. Now let's zoom out, way out past the petty comparisons and wounded pride, to a perspective so vast it makes jealousy feel almost laughably small. This is the view from above, a Stoic meditation that Seneca himself used when envy threatened to cloud his judgment. picture this: you're standing on a hill at night, staring up at the stars. The same stars Seneca studied, the ones that made him realize how fleeting human conflicts really are. From here, your co-worker's promotion, your friend's flawless vacation photos, they're not just insignificant. They're invisible. The genius of this practice isn't in dismissing your feelings, but in contextualizing them. When jealousy flares, close your eyes and mentally rise until you're looking down at your neighborhood, then your city, then the curve of the earth. Watch as borders dissolve, as rivalries shrink to specks. That person you're envying, they're fighting battles you can't see, just like you, that thing you're craving. In 100 years, it won't even be dust. This isn't nihilism, it's liberation. By seeing your life as one thread in a cosmic tapestry, you trade resentment for wonder. Seneca wrote about studying astronomy not to escape life, but to return to it with clearer eyes. Look up at the stars, he'd say, and ask yourself, does this thing I covet really matter? Try it next time envy bites. Stare at the night sky or imagine it, and let the sheer scale of existence humble your hunger for what others have. You'll find something unexpected: gratitude for the absurd, beautiful accident that you're here at all, breathing, feeling, capable of turning jealousy into curiosity. That's the real magic of this habit. It doesn't erase desire, it reframes it, leaving you lighter, wiser, and utterly present. There's a reason Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher born a slave, kept returning to one simple question: what's mine to change and what isn't? He knew something we often forget. Jealousy thrives in blurred boundaries, in the exhausting illusion that everything should bend to our will. That's where Dichotomy of Control journaling comes in. Grab a notebook and divide the page into 2 columns. On the left, what I control; on the right, what I don't. Now think back to that wave of envy you felt recently. Maybe it was when your neighbor pulled up in a new car, or when your best friend announced their engagement. Write the trigger in the appropriate column. Here's where Epictetus' broken vase comes to life. Imagine dropping your favorite vase, it shatters. You could rage against gravity, curse the floor, or obsess over what you should have done differently. Or you could recognize the truth. Once that vase left your hands, its fate was never yours to decide. The same applies to jealousy triggers, your co-worker's promotion. Their boss's decision, not yours. That influencer's lavish vacation. Their luck, their choices, not yours. The moment you transfer these from the left column to the right, something shifts. You stop pouring energy into resisting reality and start investing it where you actually have power: your attention, your efforts, your attitude. This journal isn't about passive resignation. It's about strategic focus. When you catch yourself agonizing over someone else's relationship, check your columns. Can I control their happiness? Right side. Can I choose to invest in my own connections? Left side action item. The magic happens when you review these pages weekly. Patterns emerge. You'll notice most jealousy sparks cluster in the don't control column, while the control side holds quiet opportunities, unread books, unpursued hobbies, unwritten letters to people who truly matter to you. Try it tonight. When envy flares, ask Epictetus' question. Then watch as jealousy transforms from a fog of frustration into a map, one that points decisively toward where your energy belongs. Musonius Rufus, the Stoic teacher who trained Epictetus, had a brutal but brilliant habit for cutting envy off at the root. He'd look at the things others had: the fancy house, the admiring crowds, the perfect family, and force himself to visualize losing them. Not as a dark fantasy, but as a reality check. This is already temporary, he'd remind himself. You're just borrowing it. The Stoics called this negative visualization, and it's not about pessimism, it's about precision. When you stare straight at the fragility of what you desire, you stop seeing it as something missing from your life and start seeing it for what it is: a fleeting arrangement of atoms you'll eventually have to return. Think of a child clutching a toy, screaming when it's taken away. Now imagine that child being told upfront, you get to play with this for an hour, then it goes back on the shelf. The tantrum never happens. That's the power of temporary ownership thinking. Apply it to your jealousy triggers. That friend with the dream job, picture them 10 years from now, packing up their desk, handing in their keycard. The influencer with millions of followers, see their platform crashing, their audience vanishing overnight. This isn't schadenfreude, it's sobering perspective. By rehearsing loss, you detoxify the craving, the house, the accolades, the perfect relationship. They are all on loan. Here's how to practice it. Next time envy flares, pause and ask, if I had this thing I covet, how would I feel losing it? Really sit with that, the pit in your stomach when the promotion gets revoked, the hollow ache when the luxury car gets totaled. Suddenly, the shiny object loses its glow. You start noticing the hidden costs, the stress of maintaining that image, the fear of losing what you've gained. That's when the magic happens. The energy you wasted wanting transfers into appreciating what you already can't keep. Your health, the laugh of someone you love, this breath. Musonius took this further. He'd practice voluntary discomfort, sleeping on the floor when he had a bed, wearing plain clothes when finery was available. Not to punish himself, but to prove a point. I am not these things. Try a micro version today. Leave your phone at home for an hour. Wear an outfit that doesn't draw attention. Notice how the world keeps turning, how your worth doesn't flicker. Jealousy can't survive that kind of clarity. It feeds on the illusion that possessions define you. Negative visualization smothers that lie, not with deprivation, but with devastating honesty. This habit works because it bypasses willpower. You're not fighting envy, you're dissolving its fuel. When you internalize that everything you admire in others is transient and everything you have is too comparison loses its teeth, what remains? The quiet thrill of being here at all, unburdened by imaginary deficits. That's the Stoic secret. Wanting less isn't about having less. It's about seeing through the mirage of permanence and waking up to what's already yours. Here's something you've probably never done: scrolled through social media and thought, I wish I had their discipline. Look at how patiently they handle criticism. Wow, their humility is inspiring. We don't envy virtues, we envy cars, we envy vacations, we envy highlight reels. The Stoics noticed this 2,000 years ago, and their solution was radical. Stop comparing what you have to what others own. Start comparing who you're becoming to who you could be. Virtue comparison replacement isn't about ignoring success, it's about redefining what success means. Picture two friends at a reunion. One brags about his new Rolex, the other listens quietly, then shares how he's learning to control his temper with his kids. Who walks away feeling richer? The Stoics would argue it's the second man, because while watches can be stolen, self-mastery compounds. Marcus Aurelius kept a list in his journal, not of emperors he admired, but of ordinary people whose kindness or resilience outshone his own. When you're tempted to envy someone's wealth, he wrote, shift your gaze to their character, then ask, what can I emulate? This habit flips jealousy on its head. That colleague who got the corner office, instead of stewing over her salary, notice how she prepares the early mornings, the meticulous notes, the friend with the seemingly perfect marriage. Rather than aching for their romance, study how they navigate conflict with grace. Social media makes this brutally hard. Platforms are engineered to highlight possessions, not patience, vacations, not virtue. But you can reprogram the algorithm in your mind. Next time you catch yourself green-eyed over someone's new car, pause and ask, what quality do they have that I could develop? Maybe it's their work ethic, their generosity, their ability to stay calm under pressure. The twist: virtue is the one thing you can envy without toxicity. Wanting someone else's courage doesn't diminish you, it lifts you. Epictetus put it bluntly, if you see someone doing well, examine your own hands. Are they equally capable? Then get to work. This isn't about moral superiority. It's about trading the hollow ache of I wish I had for the electric thrill of I'm becoming. Try this today. Open your social feed, and for every post that sparks envy, the tropical getaway, the new home, write down one admirable trait that person demonstrates. The discipline to save for that trip, the creativity behind that renovation. Suddenly, your scroll becomes a mirror, reflecting not what you lack, but who you might grow into. That's the Stoic secret. Jealousy isn't the enemy. Misplaced comparison is. Redirect it, and envy becomes your most unexpected teacher. Chrysippus, one of Stoicism's greatest thinkers, observed something revolutionary about human emotions. They're not instant reactions, but decisions we make in the space between stimulus and response. That tiny gap, barely noticeable, is where Stoics plant their flag. Here's how they weaponized it against jealousy. The next time you feel that hot surge of envy, seeing your ex move on, watching a rival celebrate a win, don't act. Don't speak, don't even think, just breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it, exhale for 4, hold again. This 4-4-4-4 rhythm isn't just calming, it's a neurological reset button. Ancient texts describe Stoic students practicing this with literal sand hourglasses, flipping them the moment jealousy struck. Why? Because envy, like all emotions, operates on a deadline. It demands immediate validation, a snide comment, a frantic scroll through comparison traps, a mental reel of your inadequacies. But when you insert that deliberate pause, you violate envy's terms. Chrysippus called this the sovereignty of the gap. In those 16 seconds of measured breath, 3 critical shifts happen. First, your amygdala, the brain's panic button, disengages. Second, your prefrontal cortex, the seat of reason, boots up. Third, and most profound, you remember that jealousy isn't something that happens to you, it's something you participate in. Modern neuroscience backs this up. Studies show it takes about 90 seconds for an emotional wave to pass if you don't feed it with thoughts. The Stoic pause accelerates this process by giving you a ritual to focus on instead of the mental fuel envy craves. Try it next time you're blindsided by someone's good news. As they gush about their raise, your 4-count breath becomes an anchor. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. They didn't take anything from me. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Their gain isn't my loss. With each cycle, the emotion loosens its grip until you're left with something startling: clarity. This habit isn't about suppressing jealousy, it's about exposing it as a choice. The co-worker's promotion, the friend's engagement ring, they're just facts. Your suffering comes from the story you wrap around them. The pause strips that away, leaving you with raw reality. This happened, now how will I meet it? Chrysippus' genius was recognizing that envy can't survive scrutiny. Like a nightmare that dissolves when you flick on the light, jealousy withers when you examine it in that 16-second window. Make this ritual reflexive. Program it into your phone's lock screen. Tie it to triggers every time you open social media, every time someone mentions a certain name. What begins as a defensive tactic soon becomes something far more powerful: the habit of meeting life not as a reactor but as a witness. And in that space, jealousy doesn't vanish, it transforms. No longer a dictator, it becomes a messenger, whispering not why them, but what now. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in his private journal about a rival general's victory, not with bitterness, but with something shocking: admiration. He earned this, the emperor noted. The gods arranged it so. Who am I to quarrel with their design? This is Amor Fati, the love of fate applied to others' success, the ultimate Stoic hack for dissolving jealousy. Most of us treat life like a zero-sum game. If someone else wins, we lose. The Stoics saw it differently. Every achievement, every bit of good fortune, even for people we secretly resent, was woven into the same cosmic tapestry that includes our own path. Here's how to practice this mental shift. When a friend lands the job you wanted, instead of thinking, "Why not me?" ask, "What if this is exactly how things should be?" Not in a passive, resigned way, but with active curiosity. Maybe fate spared you a role that would have drained you. Maybe their success clears space for an opportunity you can't yet see. Marcus would envision his rivals' triumphs as necessary threads in Rome's survival. Their victories strengthened the empire he loved. You can do the same. That colleague's promotion, it keeps the company stable, which secures your paycheck. That influencer's viral post, it inspires others, creating a ripple of confidence you might benefit from. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, took this further. He'd mentally thank people who annoyed him, seeing them as sparring partners, strengthening his patience. Apply that to envy. The next time someone's good fortune stings, thank them silently, not for the thing they have, but for the mirror they hold up. Their success shows me what I value. Their joy reminds me I'm capable of feeling deeply. This isn't spiritual bypassing, it's strategic reframing. By treating others' wins as gifts rather than threats, you rewire your brain's scarcity circuits. Try this tonight. Scroll through your social feed until you find a post that makes your jaw tighten. Now, whisper one sentence: "This too belongs." Sit with the resistance that follows. Notice how jealousy thrives on the belief that life owes you specific outcomes, while Amor Fati thrives on trust, not that everything will go your way, but that nothing happens outside life's intricate, intelligent balance. Marcus didn't cheer for rivals because he was naive. He did it because he knew a profound secret: fighting reality exhausts you. Loving it, even when it favors others, sets you free. Think about the last time you closed a social media app. Did you feel richer in character or just poorer in comparison? Seneca had a rule for his students: avoid crowds, not because they're wicked, but because they're contagious. Today's crowd isn't just physical, it's the endless scroll of curated lives algorithmically designed to trigger your envy. But here's the good news: you can engineer your feed to function like a Stoic classroom rather than a highlight reel battle royale. Start with a ruthless audit. Open your favorite platform and swipe through 20 posts. For each one, ask, does this feed my wisdom or my insecurity? That travel blogger flaunting 5-star resorts, unless they're sharing insights on cultural humility or budget travel hacks, mute them. The fitness influencer posting shirtless progress pics, keep them only if they teach discipline, not if they spark body shame. This isn't about purging pleasure, it's about prioritizing content that leaves you more grounded, not more grasping. Next, actively seek what the Stoics called soul-nourishing accounts. Follow historians dissecting Marcus Aurelius' leadership mistakes. Subscribe to philosophers breaking down Epictetus' morning routines. Even outside formal Stoicism, look for creators who embody eudaimonia, human flourishing. The chef who shares kitchen failures alongside triumphs. The artist documenting their creative blocks. These are modern versions of Seneca's letters, not showcasing perfection, but modeling perseverance. Here's the tactical shift: turn passive consumption into active dialogue. When you encounter a post that stirs envy, press pause and journal 2 responses. First, the raw reaction: her promotion makes me feel inadequate. Then, the Stoic rebuttal: what evidence proves her success diminishes mine? What unseen sacrifices did she make? This transforms your feed from a jealousy minefield into a training ground for critical thinking. Finally, schedule Seneca hours. Just as the philosopher retreated from Rome's chaos to reflect, designate 30 minutes daily for intentional scrolling, no mindless thumb swiping. Use this time to engage deeply with one substantive post. Comment with a question about the creator's process, not just praise for their results. Bookmark quotes to revisit later. Over time, your algorithms will learn to serve you banquets of substance rather than junk food for your insecurities. The goal isn't to sanitize your digital life until it's joyless. It's to curate a feed where envy has no oxygen, because every time you open an app, you're greeted not by rivals to resent, but by mentors who remind you comparison is the thief of presence, and wisdom is the only metric that never depreciates. Epictetus, the philosopher who transformed adversity into wisdom, had a nightly ritual that modern psychology would later confirm as life-changing. He'd review his day not by tallying regrets, but by conducting what we now call the gratitude triple column, a practice so simple it disarms jealousy at its core. Grab a notebook and draw 3 lines. In the first column, write the envy trigger, my neighbor's new car. The second, brutal honesty, why this doesn't define my worth. The third, a seismic shift, the abundance I overlook daily. Here's why this works. Jealousy narrows your vision like a spotlight, fixating on one glittering object while leaving the rest of your life in darkness. The first column acknowledges that spotlight. Okay, I'm bothered by my coworker's praise. No judgment, just observation. The second column flickers the lights back on. Their recognition doesn't erase my progress. My value isn't determined by applause. This isn't denial, it's perspective. Ancient Stoics knew what neuroscientists now verify. The brain can't simultaneously process gratitude and envy. They're neurological opposites, but the third column is where the magic ignites. Instead of stopping at this isn't important, you pivot to here's what is. That neighbor's car, column 3 might read, the bike that lets me feel the wind, the savings account growing quietly, the legs that still carry me. Epictetus didn't just preach gratitude, he weaponized it. Born a slave, he wrote, freedom isn't secured by filling your pockets, but by emptying your envy. His triple column wasn't fluffy positivity. It was ammunition against the lie that you're lacking. Try this tonight with a modern twist. Open your camera roll and scroll to a random photo from 6 months ago. Maybe it's a meal you cooked, a sidewalk flower you noticed, your dog mid-yawn. That's column 3 material proof that joy existed before the thing you now covet. The Stoic insight, envy can't survive specificity. The more vividly you catalog ordinary blessings, the less power extraordinary luxuries hold. This habit's brilliance lies in its sequencing. You don't skip straight to gratitude, that can feel forced. By first naming and then neutralizing the envy, you create psychological space for appreciation to flood inorganically. Like Epictetus chaining his crutch to his doorframe as a reminder of hardship overcome, your third column becomes an anchor, not to shame you for wanting, but to shock you awake to how much you already hold. A client of mine envied her sister's sprawling home until her third column revealed the cozy kitchen where my kids tell me secrets, the front porch where I watch thunderstorms. Months later, she told me something extraordinary. I don't just list those things anymore, I see them everywhere. That's the secret. The triple column isn't an exercise. It's a lens, and once you start using it, the world shifts from a gallery of lacks to a living museum of gifts, most of which you've already been holding all along. Cato the Younger, the Stoic senator who stood unshaken as Rome crumbled into tyranny, had a peculiar habit whenever jealousy gnawed at him. Instead of seething over a rival's political win or wealth, he'd investigate their path like a detective, not to find flaws but to uncover what he could replicate. This wasn't passive admiration, it was envy alchemy, taking the raw ore of resentment and refining it into actionable wisdom. Imagine stumbling upon your frenemy's viral blog post. The sting is instant, but what if, instead of closing the tab in frustration, you dissected their craft? How many drafts did they scrap before this one? What niche did they fill that others missed? That's Cato's mindset, turning rivals into unintentional mentors. Here's how to practice this today. First, identify your jealousy's specific flavor. Is it their results, the book deal, the promotions, or their traits, their discipline, their charm? Results are often mirages. You're seeing the summit, not the climb. Traits are gold. Next, study their origin story. That influencer with millions of followers. Dig past the glam shots to their early posts, the awkward lighting, the crickets in the comments. You'll usually find a pivot point where they doubled down on authenticity or mastered a skill you're still avoiding. Marcus Aurelius did this with his adopted father, Antoninus. He didn't covet the man's throne. He emulated his morning routine, his meticulous note-taking, his refusal to rush decisions. The magic happens when you shift from why them to how them. A client of mine envied a colleague's public speaking prowess until she reverse engineered his success. Turns out, he practiced every talk in an empty conference room 7 times. Her envy transformed into a challenge. What's my equivalent of 7 run-throughs? This habit works because it bypasses self-pity. Jealousy shouts they're lucky. Alchemy whispers what's their work ethic. Even if their advantage was privilege or timing, there's always a transferable insight. Maybe it's their networking strategy or how they rebrand setbacks as comebacks. Cato took this further. He'd seek out superiors who intimidated him and ask probing questions. How did you conquer stage fright? What's your rule for saying no? Modern Stoics can do the same. Slide into the DMs of that entrepreneur you resent, not to flatter, but to excavate. Your last project fascinated me. What's one lesson it taught you that wasn't obvious? Most people cherish the chance to share hard-won wisdom. Suddenly, your rival becomes a roadmap, the final step. Document your findings like Seneca did with his mentors. Keep an envy-to-edge journal. Each time jealousy strikes, log 3 discoveries about their process and 1 small action to test their tactics. Over time, you'll spot patterns. Maybe all your envy targets share relentless preparation or a niche expertise. That's your growth blueprint. Cato knew this truth. Jealousy is just unprocessed data about your own unmet potential. Mine it wisely, and what once poisoned your peace becomes fuel for your ascent. Marcus Aurelius didn't just journal, he weaponized words. Every morning before dawn, he'd recite phrases like armor against the day's temptations. I will meet today's arrogance with my own virtue. That's the power of the indifference mantra, a Stoic hack for disarming jealousy at the moment it strikes. Here's how it works when envy flares. Your friend's engagement ring gleaming across the table, your colleague's name on the project you wanted. You don't suppress the feeling. You meet it with a preloaded truth so incisive it cuts through the illusion. Try this one. Their gain changes nothing about my path. Say it aloud. Feel how it shifts your breath, your posture. That's not denial, it's precision. Jealousy thrives on false equivalences, convincing you that someone else's joy diminishes yours. The indifference mantra exposes the lie. Modern affirmations often focus on I am enough, which can feel vague when envy's grip is visceral. Stoic mantras are different, they're surgical. This person's success doesn't alter my capacity for courage. That vacation photo has no jurisdiction over my peace. Each one reinforces a core Stoic truth. External events are indifferent until you assign them meaning. Marcus crafted these phrases for his most vulnerable moments. When a rival flaunted wealth, he'd whisper, "Gold shines, but only character illuminates." When envy tempted him to resent another's talent, he'd recite, "I compete only with who I was yesterday." You can tailor yours to your triggers. Does social media twist your gut? Try pixels don't define my progress. Does professional jealousy haunt you? Their title doesn't dictate my growth. The key is specificity. Mantras should address your unique battlegrounds. Here's the neuroscience behind it. Every time you repeat a mantra while recalling an envy trigger, you weaken the neural pathway linking that trigger to suffering. It's like training your brain to say, "Oh, this again," instead of "this is catastrophic." A client of mine used their highlight reel isn't my syllabus whenever she compared her startup struggles to others' milestones. Within weeks, her scrolls became quieter, her focus sharper. Don't wait for jealousy to strike to craft these. Do what Marcus did, write them in advance, store them in your phone's notes or tape them to your mirror. Then when envy whispers you're falling behind, you'll have a sword ready. Behind whom? The race is only with myself. That's the alchemy. You're not fighting the emotion, you're changing what it means. And in that shift, jealousy doesn't vanish, it becomes irrelevant. Seneca once wrote a letter to his friend Lucilius with a striking exercise. He asked him to look back on his past anxieties from the present and notice how trivial most had become. This is the essence of the Stoic time capsule, a mental tool for shrinking jealousy down to size. Here's how it works when envy grips you: your coworker's promotion, your sibling's perfect vacation photos. Pause and project yourself 5 years into the future. Now ask, how much will this matter to me then? The answer is almost always the same: not at all. This isn't about dismissing your feelings, it's about exposing their shelf life. Jealousy thrives on immediacy, convincing you that the thing you covet right now is eternally significant. The time capsule breaks that spell. Picture yourself in 5 years flipping through old photos. That friend's luxury car you craved, you'll struggle to remember its make. That influencer's follower count you obsessed over, it'll feel as relevant as yesterday's weather. What will stand out? The quiet moments you missed because you were too busy comparing: the laughter at dinner, the sunset walk, the unfinished project that could have been your masterpiece if you'd redirected that envious energy into creating. Seneca took this further. He'd imagine his deathbed reflections, asking, "When I'm breathing my last, will I regret not having what they had or not savoring what was mine?" That's the time capsule's power. It forces jealousy to play the long game, and it always loses. A client of mine was tormented by her cousin's glamorous social media posts until she tried this. 5 years from now, she realized, "I won't care about her parties, but I might regret not writing my novel because I was too busy resenting her." That shift changed everything. Here's how to practice it. Next time envy strikes, open your phone's notes and write a letter from your future self. "Dear your name, it's 2029. I'm looking back at how upset you were today about trigger." Here's what actually mattered from that time. Let the words flow. You'll often find your future self chuckling at what once seemed monumental, or gently scolding you for overlooking the real gifts in front of you. The Stoic twist: this isn't just speculation. Seneca's letters prove it. He saved correspondence from his youth and reread it decades later, stunned by how insignificant his old jealousies seemed. "We suffer more in imagination than in reality," he wrote. The time capsule turns that insight into lived experience. It doesn't erase envy, it outpaces it, leaving you with something far more valuable: the clarity to invest your limited days where they'll truly echo. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, had a radical approach to jealousy. He'd dissect it like a scientist examining a foreign specimen under glass. Modern psychology calls this cognitive restructuring, but the Stoics perfected it 23 centuries earlier with a simple tool: the Envy Interrogation Journal. Here's how it works. The next time you feel that familiar twist in your gut, your cousin flaunting their new house, your coworker receiving public praise, don't suppress it. Grab a notebook and attack it with 4 ruthless Socratic questions. First, what about this situation feels like a personal threat? Jealousy always masquerades as danger, as if someone else's gain means your defeat. Your hand might write, "If they have this, I'll never get it." Now circle the logical flaw. Their success didn't confiscate your opportunities. The universe isn't a pie with limited slices. This question exposes jealousy's biggest lie: scarcity. Second, what would I have to believe about myself to feel this way? This cuts to the bone. That pang over your friend's book deal might trace back to "I'm not a real writer" or "my work doesn't matter." Epictetus taught that suffering stems not from events but from judgments about events. By naming those hidden judgments, you drain their power. Third, the most transformative: how is this envy trying to protect me? Strange as it sounds, jealousy often arises from misguided self-care. Resenting a peer's fitness progress might reveal your own longing for health. Envying a colleague's confidence could signal your desire to speak up. When you reframe envy as a distorted reflection of your values, it becomes a compass. Finally, what action would honor this feeling without letting it own me? Maybe it's texting that friend to ask about their creative process instead of ghosting them. Perhaps it's signing up for the class you've postponed. Stoicism never demanded passive acceptance, it demanded clear-eyed response. A client of mine used this method when her sister announced a pregnancy while she struggled with infertility. Her journal revealed a shocking truth. I'm not jealous of her baby, I'm terrified I'll never heal my grief. That shift didn't erase the pain, but it gave her a path forward, one that included honest conversations and a new support group. The magic of this habit lies in its structure. You're not rationalizing away emotion, you're conversing with it, like Socrates dismantling flawed arguments in the Athenian marketplace. Each question loosens jealousy's grip until all that remains is raw material for growth. Keep this journal close. Over time, you'll catch your mind automatically running these queries, not after the storm of envy, but as it brews. That's when you know you've gained what the Stoics prized above all: mastery over your inner dialogue. Musonius Rufus, the Stoic teacher who shaped Epictetus, had a morning routine that would baffle most modern minds. He'd plunge into an ice-cold river, not because he had to, but because he chose to. This wasn't masochism, it was mental armor. Today, we call this voluntary discomfort exposure, and it's one of the most counterintuitive yet transformative habits for dismantling jealousy at its roots. Here's why. Envy feeds on the illusion that comfort equals happiness, that luxury equals worth. But when you regularly step into small, controlled doses of discomfort, skipping the elevator for stairs, wearing last season's clothes proudly, taking a cold shower, you prove to yourself viscerally that you can thrive with less. Think of it like emotional vaccination. Just as a tiny dose of a virus trains your immune system, voluntary discomfort inoculates you against status anxiety. That coworker's designer watch won't sting as much when you've spent a weekend happily wearing your old one. The 5-star resort photos won't trigger you if you've recently camped under the stars and loved it. Musonius wasn't advocating poverty, he was demonstrating something far more radical: freedom through voluntary simplicity. While others scrambled for more, he'd sit on the floor to eat plain meals, proving to himself, "I don't need a throne to be at peace." Modern research backs this up. Studies show that people who intentionally practice discomfort fasting, digital detoxes, exercising in basic gear report lower envy and higher life satisfaction. Why? Because they've broken the subconscious link between external conditions and inner contentment. A client of mine envied her friend's luxury car until she committed to taking the bus twice a week. At first, it felt like a punishment, she admitted. Then I noticed things: street musicians, snippets of conversations that I'd missed while driving. Now her car just seems loud. Start small. Next time you're out to eat, order water instead of wine, not to save money, but to notice how little it affects your joy. Leave your phone at home during a walk. Sleep with one less blanket. Each time you do this, you're rehearsing a critical Stoic truth: you are not what you own. Luxury becomes preference, not necessity, and when envy whispers, "You deserve better," you'll have lived proof that better is a mindset, not a price tag. The ultimate test: try a discomfort sprint for 24 hours, live like Musonius. Simple meals, minimal distractions, no complaints. You'll discover something astonishing. The less you need to impress others, the more alive you feel. That's the secret no one tells you about voluntary discomfort. It doesn't shrink your world, it expands your sense of enough. Epictetus trained his students in a peculiar but powerful exercise, standing before a mirror while rehearsing their reactions to envy. He understood something neuroscience now confirms: your facial expressions don't just reflect emotions, they create them. The Stoic mirror technique isn't about faking serenity. It's about rewiring your default responses, so when jealousy strikes, your body becomes an ally rather than a betrayer. Here's how to practice it. Next time you feel that familiar heat rise, your throat tightening at a friend's achievement, your jaw clenching at a rival's boast, excuse yourself. Find a mirror. Now observe: are your eyebrows furrowed, shoulders hunched, lips pressed thin? These aren't just symptoms of envy, they're fuel for it. Epictetus taught that the face is a feedback loop. Scowl and your brain receives a signal: this is a threat. Relax your brow and the message shifts: I can handle this. Modern studies show even forcing a smile releases dopamine. The Stoic mirror technique leverages this. Start by softening your forehead. Imagine smoothing it with your fingers. Drop your shoulders away from your ears. Unclench your teeth slightly. These micro-adjustments send a cascade of calm through your nervous system, creating space between stimulus and response. A client of mine used this before congratulating a colleague who'd gotten the promotion she wanted. At first, my grin felt stiff, she admitted, but holding it for 10 seconds flipped something. By the time I shook his hand, my words felt genuine. The second layer is posture. Envy shrinks us physically, slumped spine, inward curl. Counter it with what the Stoics called the philosopher's stance, feet rooted, chest open, hands relaxed. This isn't arrogance, it's sovereignty. Marcus Aurelius practiced this before addressing the Senate, knowing that standing like a man unshaken by pettiness would make him become that man. Your body language doesn't just communicate to others, it convinces you. Try this tonight. Scroll through social media until you find a post that pricks your envy. Then, before spiraling, stand before a mirror. Watch your face darken, then consciously relax it. Notice how the emotion loosens its grip when your muscles do. Epictetus' genius was recognizing that mastery begins with the visible. Control your expression, and you create the conditions to control your mind. After all, no one ever calmed a storm by raging at the waves, but sometimes steadying the ship is enough to remind you you're the captain. Hierocles, the Stoic philosopher, left us a radical antidote to jealousy, an image so simple yet transformative that it redefines how we see ourselves in relation to others. Picture a series of concentric circles like ripples from a pebble dropped in water. At the center, you, the next ring, family, then friends, community, humanity, all living beings. Here's the revolutionary part: jealousy shrivels when you consciously draw those distant circles inward, step by step, until the person you envy no longer feels like a rival but like kin. This isn't abstract poetry, it's psychological alchemy. When resentment flares over your cousin's promotion, visualize their place in the circles, not as someone taking from you, but as a thread in the same vast tapestry. That influencer with the perfect life, pull their circle closer until you see them as a fellow traveler, subject to the same fears and hopes. Hierocles wasn't preaching altruism, he was offering a survival tool. Envy isolates, connection liberates. Try this tonight. Sketch the circles on paper when jealousy strikes. Write the envied person's name in their current ring, perhaps acquaintance or stranger. Now mentally migrate them inward. What shared struggles might they hide? What kindness had they shown others? A client loathed her neighbor's pristine garden until she noticed him one dawn, knees muddy, hands calloused, not just a showpiece but a fellow laborer in life's soil. The circles don't erase differences, they reveal shared humanity beneath them. Marcus Aurelius used this to lead an empire without bitterness. What injures the hive injures the bee, he wrote, seeing even rivals as cells in one body. Modern science confirms this. Brain scans show that practicing kinship visualization literally rewires neural pathways, dampening envy's fire. The circles aren't just a metaphor. They're a mirror reflecting back the truth that every person you resent is fighting battles you can't see, clinging to joys as fleeting as yours, equally deserving of the peace you crave. The final step, act as if the circles have merged. Compliment that coworker you've silently resented. Engage with that perfect stranger's post, not with bitterness but curiosity. Hierocles knew the secret: jealousy can't survive genuine connection. Each small act of recognition shrinks the distance between them and us, until what remains isn't envy, but the quiet wonder of finding yourself in everyone. Seneca kept a chilling but liberating practice. Every night before sleep, he'd ask himself, if this were my final night on earth, would I regret spending today envying someone else's life? This is memento mori, remembering death not as morbid fixation, but as the ultimate lens for clarifying what truly matters. picture this: you're lying on what might be your deathbed, replaying your life. How many hours will you wish you'd spent obsessing over your neighbor's car or your high school rival's promotion? The answer stings: 0. Mortality doesn't just put things in perspective, it vaporizes pettiness. The Stoics didn't shy from this truth, they leaned into it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say." Modern psychology echoes this. Studies show that people who regularly contemplate mortality report higher gratitude, lower materialism, and crucially, less envy. Why? Because death is the great equalizer. That coworker whose office is slightly bigger, the influencer whose followers double yours. In the face of the infinite, these distinctions collapse into absurdity. A client of mine obsessed with her sister's Pinterest perfect home tried this exercise. "I imagined my last breath," she said. Suddenly, her subway tile backsplash seemed about as important as a dust mote. Here's how to practice it. Each evening, as Seneca did, light a candle and ask 2 questions. First, what jealousy today wasted precious life energy? Maybe it was fixating on a stranger's vacation pics or sulking after a peer's success. Name it without judgment. Then, the razor: if I died tonight, would this have been worthy of my limited heartbeats? The first time you do this, something shifts. The things you covet start looking smaller, while the things you've overlooked, the warmth of your sheets, the taste of your evening tea, glow brighter. This habit isn't about morbidity, it's about urgency. Death doesn't steal meaning, it concentrates it. That friend who seems to have it all, their time is as finite as yours. That dream you're postponing because you're too busy comparing, the clock ticks for both of you. Memento mori doesn't say, "Life is short, so give up." It whispers, "Life is short, so look up." The pettiest jealousies dissolve under that light, leaving only what's real: your hands, your breath, and the blazing, fleeting now. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, didn't just teach philosophy, he lived its most startling paradox. Before becoming Athens' most revered thinker, he was a wealthy merchant whose entire fortune sank in a shipwreck. Most would call that ruin. Zeno called it the best day of his life. Why? Because that loss forced him to confront a question we still avoid today: what actually defines success? Modern metrics scream one-answer job titles, bank balances, social media likes, but Stoicism whispers another: only what can never be shipwrecked counts. Think about how we measure achievement today. Promotions are celebrated with champagne, followers are tallied like trophies, houses are displayed as merit badges. Now imagine Zeno observing this spectacle from his threadbare cloak in the Athenian agora. He'd say, "We've confused the containers for the contents. A promotion isn't success, the integrity you bring to it is. Followers aren't influence, the wisdom you share with them is." Even that shipwreck that left him penniless, it became his liberation, proving that his worth wasn't tied to cargo manifests but to his character's unshakable core. Here's the litmus test the Stoics used. If everything external vanished tomorrow, your job, your possessions, your reputation, what would remain that's truly yours? Not your office, but your work ethic, not your likes, but your honesty, not your home, but your capacity to find peace anywhere. A client of mine obsessed with climbing the corporate ladder tried this exercise after reading Zeno. "I listed everything I thought made me successful," he told me. "Then I asked, which of these could I lose without losing myself? The list got very short." Marcus Aurelius, despite ruling Rome, journaled daily about avoiding the trappings of power. Take care not to Caesarify yourself. He warned, don't mistake the costume for the person wearing it. Today's equivalent, don't confuse your LinkedIn profile with your life. The Stoic success redefinition isn't about rejecting ambition, it's about redirecting it inward. That friend who just bought a mansion, instead of measuring your worth against her square footage, ask, am I building inner spaciousness, room to breathe, to grow, to withstand life's storms? Practice this shift with a simple nightly audit. Not what did I achieve today, but how did I live my values? Did you choose patience over pettiness in that frustrating meeting? That's a victory no recession can erase. Did you listen deeply to a struggling colleague? That's influence no algorithm can quantify. Zeno's shipwreck didn't diminish him, it revealed him. Your jealousies, when examined this way, become signposts pointing not toward others' lives, but toward the version of success you've yet to claim. One where your self-worth isn't for sale, your peace isn't negotiable, and your character is the only currency that never crashes. Imagine watching your rival receive an award you've worked years to earn. The applause, the spotlight, everything you wanted now shining on someone else. The Stoics faced these moments too, but they didn't just endure them. They engineered a mental alchemy that transformed bitter envy into pure creative fuel. Here's how their 4-step formula works, adapted for modern life. Step 1. Name the sting when jealousy strikes. Don't dismiss it, define it with surgical precision. Seneca would journal exactly what about the situation burned. Is it their recognition I crave or the validation I've denied myself? A client envied her colleague's speaking skills until she pinpointed the real ache. It's not his eloquence, it's that he voices ideas I keep silent. This step isn't about justification, it's about excavation. Jealousy is always a distorted reflection of something you value. Step 2. Decouple the person from the principle. Marcus Aurelius studied rivals not to resent them, but to extract universal lessons. That coworker who got the promotion, analyze how rather than why them. Did they volunteer for cross-department projects, network strategically? The Stoics called this separating the wine from the vessel, admiring the traits without fixating on the person embodying them. One entrepreneur envied a competitor's viral marketing until he realized, it's not her success I want, it's her boldness in testing unconventional ideas. Step 3. Craft your countermove now. Translate insight into action. Epictetus taught that envy without a plan is just self-torture. If you covet someone's discipline, design a micro-challenge. I'll wake 30 minutes earlier this week to draft my proposal. If it's their creativity, commit to one unreasonable idea shared per meeting. The key, make the step so small that refusing it feels sillier than attempting it. A writer paralyzed by a peer's book deal started with 1 paragraph daily, even if it's terrible. Within months, her envy had morphed into a manuscript. Step 4. Build a reverse sanctuary. The Stoics created mental shrines not to worship others' achievements, but to honor their own growth. Each night, review your countermove's progress. Did you voice that idea? Complete that workout. These aren't grades, they're landmarks. Musonius Rufus kept a jar, adding a pebble for every small victory over comparison. Over time, the weight of those stones outmassed his envy. The magic lies in the sequence. Most self-help stops at step 1. Acknowledge your feelings, leaving you marooned in awareness. Stoicism pushes further emotion as raw material, action as the crucible, growth as the alloy that rivals success. It's no longer a threat, it's your blueprint. Cato the Younger shocked Rome when at the height of his political power he voluntarily resigned his prestigious office. Not because he failed, but because he wanted to test a radical question. Could he still be Cato without the title? This is the essence of the external goods audit, a quarterly ritual the Stoics used to separate what truly serves their character from what merely flatters their ego. Picture this, you're clearing out your closet, but instead of clothes, you're examining every possession, achievement, and status symbol you've collected over the past 3 months. Not to declutter, but to ask with brutal honesty, does this make me better or just look better? Most of us chase external markers of success. The job title, the luxury watch, the Instagram-worthy home, without ever stopping to assess whether they align with our deepest values. The Stoics called these preferred indifference, things that might be nice to have, but aren't essential for living virtuously. The external goods audit forces them to prove their worth. Here's how to conduct yours. First, list your 5 most prized externals right now. Maybe it's your managerial position, your designer handbag collection, even your follower count. Now for each one, play Cotto's resignation thought experiment. If I lost this tomorrow, what part of me would remain? A tech executive client of mine discovered something startling during his audit. His Tesla, his corner office, those barely registered, but the tattered journal where he recorded lessons from failures, that's the real CV, he realized. The audit isn't about renouncing comforts, it's about recognizing which comforts accidentally became crutches. Seneca practiced this by periodically living as if he'd lost his wealth. Poverty, he wrote, is always just one step behind me, not to fear it, but to remember that his wisdom, not his villas, defined him. Take it deeper with 3 probing questions. 1. Did this possession/status create more anxiety than peace? That promotion with endless overtime might look impressive, but does it leave room for family meals? 2. Does this reflect my values or just mimic others? The luxury car you financed to impress neighbors, would you have chosen it alone on a deserted island? 3. The most revealing, what would I pay to get this back if I lost it? Suddenly, that influencer verification badge seems less priceless. The magic happens in the aftermath. You'll notice patterns. Maybe you've been collecting status symbols like armor, or perhaps you undervalue simple tools that actually fuel your growth. A fashion designer who envied rivals' runway shows pared back her wardrobe during an audit and discovered her creativity exploded when less distracted by labels. This habit echoes Musonius Rufus' teaching. Wealth is not in having many possessions, but in needing few. Not because minimalism is virtuous, but because every external you don't overvalue becomes energy freed for what truly matters. Close your audit by selecting one item to release, not necessarily physically, though donating can be powerful, but psychologically. Demote it from essential to optional in your mind. Maybe it's your LinkedIn headline, that gym membership you barely use but keep for appearances. Watch what happens when you stop letting these things define you. Like Cotto stepping down from office only to find his influence grew stronger, you'll discover an unexpected truth. The less you need to prove, the more you have to offer. Marcus Aurelius often stood by the Tiber River, watching debris float past leaves, twigs, occasional wreckage from upstream, and saw in that current a profound truth: everything is passing. Not just objects, but status, relationships, even empires. This is the contemplation of impermanence, a Stoic habit that doesn't just lessen jealousy, it evaporates it by revealing a fact more certain than death or taxes: nothing lasts. Not the car you envy, not the accolades you crave, not even the hands typing these words or the eyes reading them. Here's how to practice it. Next time jealousy grips you, your friend's promotion, a stranger's flawless Instagram feed, pause and imagine those very things decaying. That corner office, picture dust settling on the desk, vines cracking through the windows, the nameplate tarnished beyond recognition, those vacation photos. Visualize the hotel crumbling into the sea, the cocktails evaporating, the smiles frozen in fading pixels. This isn't morbid, it's liberating. Marcus called it viewing every object as if it already ceased to exist. When you do this, envy's scream becomes a whisper because you can't covet what you know is already vanishing. Modern psychology confirms this. Studies show that people who regularly reflect on impermanence report higher contentment and lower materialism. Why? Because jealousy thrives on the illusion of permanence, that someone else's joy will last forever while yours stagnates. The river meditation shatters that lie. A client obsessing over her sister's wedding ring tried this. I imagined the diamond lost in a field, the gold melting back into ore. Suddenly, my craving felt silly. Take it further with Marcus Time's Arrow exercise. Project forward a century. Everyone you know, every rival, every idol will be bones and memory. That coveted job title forgotten, those designer clothes, threadbare relics in a thrift store, now zoom back. Does their temporary nature make them worthless? No, it makes them precious, but precious like cherry blossoms, not like granite. The Stoic twist: knowing things fade doesn't diminish their beauty. It frees you to enjoy them without clutching. Try this tonight. Scroll through a social feed, but with a philosopher's eye. For each envy-triggering post, mentally fast-forward 50 years. The yacht rusting underwater, the influencer's flawless skin weathering time like all flesh. What remains isn't despair but clarity, that the only real waste is spending your fleeting days resenting others' fleeting joys. Marcus left us the antidote: soon you'll be ashes or bones, a mere name at best, and that name just a whisper. Let that whisper carry your jealousy away, leaving only what's ever present, the now. Seneca once challenged his students with a startling question: would you truly trade your entire life, your hidden struggles, your private sacrifices for the outward appearance of someone else's? This is Stoic role reversal, a mental maneuver that doesn't just curb jealousy, it vaporizes it by exposing envy's greatest blind spot. We covet the highlights of others' lives while ignoring the reels of unseen footage. Here's how it works. The next time jealousy flares your friend's promotion, your cousin's seemingly perfect marriage, pause and imagine being them for a day. Not just their achievements, but their burdens, their inbox at 3 a.m., the arguments they never post about, the childhood wounds they carry into every relationship. Modern psychology confirms what Seneca intuited: we consistently overestimate others' happiness while underestimating our own. A study tracking people's willingness to trade lives found something revealing when participants learned even basic details about the envied person's stresses. Their desire to swap evaporated. This habit forces that clarity upfront. That colleague with the corner office, picture inheriting their 70-hour work weeks, their boardroom battles, their inability to attend their kids' soccer games. The influencer with the flawless feed, welcome their monetized privacy, their brand deal compromises, the hate mail they delete before breakfast. The Stoic twist. This isn't about schadenfreude, it's about precision. Envy thrives on vague fantasies. Role reversal demands specifics. A client envied her sister's glamorous travel job until she walked through the exercise. I'd have chronic jet lag, no stable friendships, and constant pressure to seem grateful while exhausted. Suddenly, her own routine coffee with neighbors, her garden's slow bloom, felt less like stagnation and more like sanctuary. Try this tonight. Pick one person you've recently envied. Write 2 lists: what I see, their curated wins, and what I don't, the plausible hidden costs. Now ask Seneca's razor question: knowing all this, would I still trade? Most find the answer shocks them, not because their life is perfect, but because comparison had blurred the real calculus. Every life contains trade-offs, and yours likely holds comforts you've stopped counting. Marcus Aurelius practiced this with rivals. When you're tempted by someone's status, he wrote, remember their pillow at night. Is it really smoother than yours? The goal isn't to dismiss others' joy, but to see it whole. The sleepless nights behind the startup success, the therapy sessions underpinning the serene smile. When you do, jealousy doesn't just fade, it transmutes into something far rarer: compassion for others and a quiet awe at the unshowy gifts already in your hands. Epictetus once challenged his students with a razor-sharp question: when you feel jealous, have you measured the object of your envy against the weight of your own peace? This is proportional response calculation, a Stoic practice that transforms jealousy from a wildfire into a controlled burn by applying mathematical precision to emotional reactions. Here's how it works in modern terms. The next time envy hits, your coworker gets credit for your idea, your friend buys the car you've been saving for, pause and grab a notebook. Draw 2 columns, perceived impact and actual impact. Now assign percentages. Start with the first column. How much does this event feel like it's affecting your life? That coworker's moment in the spotlight might register at 80%, a seismic blow to your credibility. Your friend's new car may be 60%, a constant reminder of your financial delays. Now cross to the second column. Objectively, what percentage of your daily life does this actually alter? Does their recognition prevent you from doing quality work tomorrow? No actual impact, 5%. Does their car empty your bank account? 0%. The gap between these numbers is where Stoic clarity emerges. Epictetus called this weighing impressions on the scales of truth. He knew our minds inflate threats like balloons until we puncture them with cold measurement. A client of mine obsessed over a rival's book deal until he ran the numbers. Perceived impact, 90%. This proves I'll never succeed. Actual impact, 2%. My manuscript deadline hasn't changed. That 90-point gap revealed the real issue, not the rival's success, but his own fear of irrelevance. Take it further with a third column, energy cost. If you spend 20 hours fuming over that promotion you didn't get, but the actual setback only warrants 2 hours of problem solving, you've just paid 1,000% emotional tax. The Stoics saw this as theft, not by others, but by our own unchecked reactions. Marcus Aurelius tracked these calculations in his journals, noting how often the shadow proved larger than the substance. Try this today. When jealousy strikes, quantify it. That influencer's lavish vacation might feel like a 70% indictment of your mundane routine. But does it actually change your capacity for joy this week? Probably no more than 3%. The revelation isn't that your feelings are wrong, it's that they're often miscalibrated. Like an overzealous car alarm screaming over a passing breeze, jealousy frequently warns of threats that don't exist. The final step, reallocate the excess. If an event only merits 5% of your mental bandwidth, but you've been giving it 40%, redirect that 35% towards something that actually moves your life forward. Research shows people who practice this recalibration report higher productivity and lower stress, not because they stop caring, but because they start measuring. Epictetus' genius was recognizing that emotions follow the same laws as markets, both trend toward equilibrium when freed from speculative bubbles. Your envy isn't the problem. Your valuation is. By bringing proportional response to each flare-up, you don't suppress jealousy. You expose its accounting errors, leaving your mind clear to invest where returns are real. Seneca didn't just escape Rome's chaos, he engineered it. Every few months, he'd vanish to his countryside villa, not for leisure, but for what he called soul maintenance. No scrolls, no servants, no status symbols, just silence, reflection, and the raw hum of existence. Today, we're drowning in a different kind of chaos. The infinite scroll, the dopamine hits, the relentless comparison traps. That's why modern Stoics need a social media Sabbath, not as deprivation, but as deliberate reclaiming of what Seneca guarded fiercely, the ability to hear your own thoughts. This isn't about quitting platforms forever. It's about mimicking Seneca's rhythm, regular, scheduled withdrawals to reset your mental equilibrium. Start with 1 day weekly. Friday evenings work well. It's when Seneca himself would begin his retreats. Delete your social apps at sundown. Don't just log out, remove the temptation entirely. Silence notifications for messaging tools unless urgent. Then, replace the void with 3 ancient Stoic practices that fill the same psychological needs: connection, stimulation, growth, but in nourishing ways. First, letter writing. Seneca's deepest insights came through correspondence with Lucilius, his protege. Your modern version, handwrite 1 real letter to someone you care about. Not a text, ink on paper. Describe a recent challenge and how you're reframing it. This taps into social media's craving for connection, but with intimacy algorithms can't replicate. A client who swapped Sunday scrolling for letter writing told me, "I thought I'd feel isolated. Instead, I rediscovered conversations that didn't need likes to matter." Second, nature immersion. The Stoics considered nature the ultimate mirror for the soul. on your Sabbath, spend at least 30 minutes outside, no headphones, no podcast. Watch how birds don't measure their songs against others. Notice how trees grow at their own pace. Marcus Aurelius wrote entire meditations on observing the orderliness of wild things to recalibrate his perspective. A tech CEO who adopted this habit reported, "After 2 hours in the woods, Instagram's highlight reels look like poorly scripted theater." Third, analog mastery. Pick one physical skill to practice: whittling, kneading bread, sketching. The Stoics believed manual labor grounded the mind. Chrysippus claimed, "Hands that shape clay reshape thoughts." Unlike digital consumption, which leaves you drained, tactile creation leaves you centered. One influencer who tried this said, "Making a terrible pottery bowl taught me more about patience than 100 motivational quotes." The Sabbath's magic lies in its revelation. Most online engagement isn't desire, it's distraction masquerading as fulfillment. By session's end, you'll notice something startling. That urgent itch to check your phone, it's not gone, but it's lost its authority. Like Seneca returning to Rome wiser from his villa, you'll re-enter the digital world not as a prisoner of its algorithms, but as a visitor who knows exactly what you're there to claim and what you're brave enough to leave behind. Picture standing at your own funeral, not in morbidity, but in clarity. The Stoics believed this exercise, called eulogy virtue alignment, cuts through life's noise like nothing else, especially the gnawing distractions of jealousy. Here's how it works. Take out a blank sheet and write the eulogy you hope would be spoken about you. Not the canned phrases of obligation, but the raw, honest words that would capture who you aspired to be at your core. Suddenly, that neighbor's luxury car, your colleague's promotion, your friend's perfect vacation photos, they all reveal their true size, tiny, fleeting, irrelevant to the story that actually matters. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily, asking, "What will be said of me when I'm gone? Not what I owned, but how I loved. Not my status, but my steadfastness." Modern psychology confirms the power of this shift. Studies show that people who regularly reflect on their legacy report lower envy and higher life satisfaction. Why? Because death strips away illusions. No one wishes their epitaph read, "She had slightly more Instagram followers than her cousins." Start with 3 questions. First, what virtues do I want echoed in my final remembrance? Kindness over clout, perhaps. Courage over comfort. Second, who do I want to have truly felt my presence? Not the vague acquaintances who liked your posts, but the people you showed up for when it counted. Third, the gut check. Are my daily choices moving me toward that eulogy, or am I chasing things that won't even make the program? A client of mine obsessed with her rival startup success tried this. Her draft eulogy began, she out-earned her peers, but by the 3rd line her hand shook. "This isn't what I want," she admitted. The final version, she taught others to rise without crushing, to lead without boasting. That shift didn't just ease her envy, it redirected her energy into mentoring, something she'd neglected while fixating on comparisons. The Stoic twist: this isn't about morbid fixation, it's about life-giving focus. When you measure your days against the metric of your ultimate farewell, jealousy loses its grip. That influencer's perfect life, irrelevant unless they modeled integrity you admire. Your sibling's bigger house, meaningless unless it was a space where generations gathered in love. Try this tonight. Write your eulogy in pencil, literal or metaphorical, then underline the verbs: loved, built, listened, persisted. These are your North Star. Whenever jealousy blurs your vision, return to them. Ask, does this pang serve any of these words? If not, it's not an emotion to wrestle with, just static to tune out. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." The eulogy virtue alignment takes it further. True wealth is wanting only what echoes beyond you. When you live by that standard, envy doesn't stand a chance because you're too busy becoming someone no comparison could ever contain. What we've uncovered isn't just a collection of habits, it's an operating system for the mind, one that reroutes jealousy's corrosive energy into the raw material of presence. Each practice builds on the last like concentric rings of wisdom, from morning premeditation that defangs envy before it strikes, to twilight reflections that dissolve comparison in the vastness of time. This is Stoicism at its most practical, not as dusty philosophy, but as a lived rebellion against the itch of if only and the tyranny of why them. Consider how these 25 tools interlock. The view from above shrinks petty rivalries to cosmic insignificance, while the envy interrogation journal exposes them as mirrors of your own unmet potential. Voluntary discomfort strips luxury of its false allure, while the eulogy virtue alignment reminds you that no one's tombstone boasts a follower count. Together, they form a seamless defense against jealousy's invasions, not by building higher walls, but by revealing there was never an enemy to begin with, just a misdirected teacher. But here's the truth no video can gift you. Transformation lives in the doing, not the knowing. So today, choose just one habit to wield like a lever. Maybe it's the 4-count breath when your thumb hovers over a triggering post. Perhaps it's the nightly triple gratitude column that rewires your brain's scarcity loops. Or maybe it's as simple as standing before a mirror and watching envy's grip loosen when your shoulders drop and your jaw unclenches. This is where your story begins, not when jealousy vanishes, it never fully does, but when you start catching it mid-flight and asking, what if this feeling isn't a wound but a compass? Share your first step below the jealousy you're alchemizing, the habit you're testing, because the real magic of Stoicism was never meant to be practiced alone. It thrives in the shared sparks of people choosing, moment by moment, to trade resentment for awe and comparison for the irreplaceable gift of being here now. Your quieter mind, your lighter heart, they're already waiting. All that's left is to begin.